Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, presented by AT&T 5G. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Matt Doyle, Kalen Carr, the Monday crew, back together. It's been a little while, boys, and we're living in a new era of the Premier League, of international soccer, of just the sport in general. Major League Soccer, Leeds United States, it's everything we could have ever wished for and hoped for. Jesse Marsch is spiking water bottles. Thomas Tuchel is complaining about bus rides, and Leeds is off and running with our boy Brendan. Just running down Edward Mindy, just taking the ball off him. No look scoring like Daniel Shallowy. How you feeling, Doyle? Insert trolling now. Let's copy paste whatever you put on Twitter Saturday. Just insert it into the show immediately.
I don't troll, first of all, and second of all, I'm weirded out by the fact that we're leading a Major League Soccer podcast by talking about some inferior league halfway around the world. So that's how I'm feeling, Wiebe.
Wow.
How about that?
Look, sometimes you got to give the backwaters the attention that some people think it deserves.
I guess the real question would be, one, if Chelsea played in the Northeast, would they be part of Atlantic Cup? Who would be their rivals? Because obviously we'd have to create rivals. And then where would they stand in the hierarchy from the Revs down to DC? I think that's sort of the question.
Is it a real league if Arsenal leads it? I mean, wow. It's like truly a fair question to ask. And you can spend the rest of this hour and a half or however long we go today after week 27 mulling that over. It delegitimizes the competition.
Do we want to go to Arsenal legend Kalen Carr for his thoughts on that one?
I have a contrary take where this is actually a bad thing, the sport growing here. I went to a bar last weekend, and this guy told me, he was like, "Oh, you played in MLS?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "People probably give you a hard time for calling it soccer, huh?" And I was like, "Not really, actually."
I thought he was thinking about, people probably give you a hard time for playing professionally in Major League Soccer, and I was gonna be like, "Hold on, bro, sitting on a bar stool."
That's definitely never happened, yeah. And he was wearing copas too, which made it just even more painful, the whole experience, because I was like, "Dude, you're wearing like indoor copas," and he didn't play. It was all bad. But I feel like after what happened this weekend with Leeds, that will probably never happen again. It's called soccer
right
now.
No,
it's official.
Yeah, this was the turning point.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's done.
Stamp it. It's done. Jesse Marsch, obviously the play on the field is the headline here. I mean, Brendan Aaronson had another magnificent game. He actually got his first goal in the Premier League, even if we think he was quasi-robbed of the other one. And Tyler Adams was just a machine. It was the Tyler Adams we've sort of known and loved in Major League Soccer, and then at his high points over at Leipzig and now with Leeds, and we hope with the U.S. Through the rest of the year and in the World Cup. Doyle, from a soccer perspective, from an American soccer perspective, what is the biggest story in this? Is it Jesse winning as a manager against Thomas Tuchel, against Chelsea for Leeds? I mean, this is obviously the first time an American manager has won a game in the Premier League with an American scoring. Is it Aaronson? Is it Adams? Is it the whole shebang? Like, what is sort of the story hierarchy?
Is it the state of New Jersey?
Yeah, I think NBC put out their Twitter feed. They put out a stat that was wrong, that Brendan Aaronson is now the 5th person from the state of New Jersey to score a Premier League goal. It's actually 6th. They omitted Giuseppe Rossi, who scored 1 Premier League goal. And I think they omitted him because he chose to play for Italy rather than the United States internationally. But I would point out that there is nothing more New Jersey than choosing to represent Italy instead of the United States. It's like the most New Jersey thing possible. As for the biggest story from this, I think, I do think in the long term it's going to be Jesse. But from our perspective as the in-house podcast at Major League Soccer, look, man, the coach who came up with the plan that absolutely pounded Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea, he was developed in Major League Soccer as a player and as a coach. Tyler Adams, I thought, was man of the match. He was in the Red Bulls Academy from age 12, was it, David?
Somewhere around. Yes, yeah. He was in the paid I come and play soccer camp.
Right,
all the way
and then
through.
Well, yeah, and then by the time he was in his early teens, he was,
He
playing.
was the first signing in Red Bull 2 history.
There you go. Brendan Aaronson, part of that Philadelphia Union Academy from around the same age. Jack Harrison, former number 1 pick in the Super Draft. So this is it's important to understand the context of this being sort of another milestone on the growth of the league, on the ability of MLS to more and more become a part of the global soccer hierarchy as a league that sort of filters players to the very top of the game in Europe. And I don't think there's much argument that, EPL and La Liga are levels above just about everything else, including the Bundesliga right now. So it felt big in that way, but it's just another stop on the trip. It's not the end point. It's not the goal. There are going to be more Jesse Marshes. There are going to be more Brendan Aaronsons, more Tyler Adams, more Jack Harrisons as well. And it's exciting to think about that and to watch our league with half a mind, not half a mind, with an eighth of your mind on like, damn, I hope. I hope Cincinnati appreciate this guy while they got him, because they're probably going to be getting 8 figures for him from a European team really soon. There's your segue, Weeby.
Is it Brenner or is it Vasquez? That's the segue. I don't know which one it even is at this point. Can I just real quick, Dave? I know you have something, but transitive property Chivas USA now greater than Chelsea. Just want to on the Jesse Marsch.
Feels strong. We had such a question on MLS Today last week. It felt like there was a lot of good Chivas energy going on in general. Brad Guzan was listening in. Everyone's just coming back around. What I would just add is, I think the combination,
by the way.
the combination of all of it, of people who are coming out of Major League Soccer, going to Europe, and looking at MLS as an entity that's like their secret, right? Because Dennis Teclosa signing Marcos Lopez, has Cole Bassett. You look at Patrick Vieira. I know Chris Richards didn't play in MLS, but that connection of him bringing him in, it feels like it's not, okay, MLS is a jumping off point, and then when people get to other levels, they forget about it, right? Now the secret is that they know how it works, and they're able to bring talent out of it. And so for Jesse to stay up and then his off season to be built around bringing in players that he knows well and has obviously worked with before, but also he knows that they can compete at that level coming out of MLS. I think that's sort of what opens up doors now to other people, because we say this about MLS, but it's about sports. Everything's copycat. And so you see it work for someone else, then you start to go and try and do it yourself. And that's where Doyle says Brandon Vasquez and Jesus Ferreira and Jeremy Abobasi and all these guys, we should enjoy them while they're here, because everyone's looking for the next Brendan Aaronson now, and everyone's looking for the next Tyler Adams.
That's true, but there's
It's also a
it's-
relationship business too, like everything else.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the ways that happened, right, was through the Red Bull system, or Jack Harrison going through NYCFC, or even Philly, Brendan, being adjacent to it and being brought into that fold. But I like that there is some diversity in the stories that are happening, or the paths. So, because Almiron had a goal against Man City as well.
Yep.
And so it's like you have the Almiron model, you have the more Tyler and Brendan model. Jack Harrison has a whole unique path and story as well. But I think for me, the story of the players coming over and having success over there, I think is going to continue to grow. But it's also, it's just the age of the player now that's different. We've had players over there that have been successful in the past. The coach piece to me is the really, I think Doyle's right, as the longer term story of what is happening there with Jesse. And I think that's really exciting, because we haven't seen that happen before. And then I think the way that he's done it to go out and get some of his guys, American players, I was like, that's a risk. Like, to go to stay up and then to bring in and double down more on American players. If that doesn't turn well for you, like, then it's a quicker trip potentially out. And so I think the idea that he's sort of committed to, they've added other pieces as well too, but I think he's got guys that want to buy into that know his system, that want to buy into what he's doing, and that's starting to bear fruit already. And I think the American guys have been some of the man of the match in their biggest wins, and taking down Chelsea. I don't think they beat any team in the top 6 last year, And so to
Right.
go after Chelsea and beat them the way they did it too, which was convincing, which I also just kind of loved because it felt like Tuchel didn't want to give him any love or didn't want to give any credit. And Jesse came out beforehand. But he's just going in fearless, right? And that carries over to the team and the way they're playing. And so, yeah, it's been awesome to watch.
Ellen Road absolutely just flying, looked like a blast to be there, and expected hugs from Jesse, in like the thousands on that day. I mean, who wasn't he hugging at that point, other than Thomas Tuchel, who avoided the handshake a little bit? It looked like one of those moments for a coach and as well for the players of validation and of hard work paying off, and of just a guy who was just soaking it in and connecting not just with his players, but with all the fans as well. Can we rank the celebrations real quick before we move on to week 27? We have so much. I have like a 8-page rundown here. You've got as it was described to me, a Gronk water bottle spike on the third goal. You've got the running fist pump, Frank Klopas thruster. On the third goal, was the water bottle spike. The first goal was like the running fist pump thruster. And then the second goal was just hugs for everybody. What do we think? But I think it's probably between first and third. So you have the thruster or the Gronk spike. What's better? The Gronk spike was in the direction of the Chelsea bench. Just going to throw that out there.
This is the most weedy
like
conversation of all time.
I like the
Just
choreography.
take something fun and natural and make it very specific.
Yeah, I like the choreography of the first one as well. So Anders says he likes the first celebration, so we'll go with what Anders thinks.
Miles,
big
distance
weekend overall.
covered. Distance covered
Yeah.
was a big gap between the two. So I think you got to go with that one.
Yeah, Tuchel was planted on the bench, looking grumpy the entire time. He had a long bus ride. It was tough for him. Tough day. How about this one? Just real quick. Josh Sargent as well. Doyle, what are the odds we see him in Qatar? He had a brace. He's playing the 9 for Norwich, and he's scoring pretty good goals doing so.
Yeah, I mean, he's so the first one was I thought better than the second one because the first one was an ability to combine around the box and actually sniff out a chance that wasn't just presented to him. Right, it was actually a bit of clever movement, and that's the main thing that's been missing from his game. He does not move particularly well. He moves really poorly around the box. There's the reason I think it was 3 or 4 consecutive head coaches just stopped using him as a center forward because you have to make those runs to be a number 9. So to see him do that. Wow, that was a breath of fresh air. I was happy to see it. Came a week after when he had a really nice header last week as well. Like, he's scoring center forward goals now. And if you're scoring 3 goals in 2 games, you're not going to lose the job. So hopefully he keeps doing that. Championship's a good league. Back when Jurgen Klinsmann was the head coach, if a guy moved down to the championship, that was it for him. Danny Williams, as soon as he moved to Reading, got dropped. He never looked at Tim Ream. He never looked at Eric Lehigh. DeAndre Yedlin, as soon as he moved to Newcastle, he got dropped. I don't think Berhalter's like that at all. I think that if Josh Sargent keeps scoring, he will give himself a chance. And I still think that just in terms of overall talent, Josh Sargent remains the best prospect in the forward pool because he can do the Jesus Ferreira stuff because his first touch is good and his hold-up play is really good. He could do the Jesus Ferreira stuff in terms of coming back and linking play, but then he brings a physical element that Ferreira doesn't. So I think that's why he was on the radar of Bayern Munich 5 years ago. When he signed with Werder Bremen, it was Werder Bremen to get playing time over Bayern Munich where he would not have played. He just didn't develop at Werder Bremen. So I think if Sargent keeps doing this, we're going to see him in September. We should see him in September. And then, if he takes his chance, we absolutely could see him in November. But it's a lot of ifs, stacking a lot of ifs on on 2 games worth of performance for a guy who has not done much at all in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net over the past 2.5 years. But, fingers crossed. It can happen with center forwards. We've seen it before. It could happen overnight just like that.
It feels like
Pifak with a goal as well.
It feels like in that September friendly, you just go 3-1-6, play 3 center backs, Tyler, and 6 forwards, and see who proves themselves that they should be on the team.
Hey, come on, guys. It's like hungry hippos. Just everybody try to get that ball, put it in the back of the net. Should we talk MLS? We've
We
got 10
have
minutes in
been,
here,
by the
so-
way. To be clear,
Yeah,
what has
no,
changed? No, but being serious, what has changed is we're not talking about national team players. We're talking about MLS products playing in Europe. That's what's new. That's what's different.
And Josh Sargent.
Hey,
That was
could've
Reese's
gone
fault
reason.
at the end.
Could've
Jack
been-
Harrison,
yeah.
baby. That's all we should be talking about.
Do we want to talk about LA Galaxy Academy product, Haji Wright, just ripping it up in Turkey, or are we just going to move on to
We'll
actually
just say
covering
that the
MLS?
number 9 race is going to be a fun one. And let's get into the best thing we saw in Week 27. Dave, I'll give you the floor here because the Josh Sargent aside that was truly my fault.
That's going into the intro.
Yeah.
That's going into the intro.
The best thing I saw on the field this weekend was Jasper Loffelsen's perfection of a through ball. The weight, the angle, everything about it was delicious. This is from arguably the best right back in the ACC last year, now playing as a center mid. Me and Susanna have talked about it a ton on MLS Today, how good he's been, the ability it gave them to sell Everton Luiz, Pablo Ruiz as a partner. It's elevated his game, I think. It's been awesome to watch, but this was a perfect ball from a player who was having a fantastic year. I thought Pozuelo played a similar ball as well on the tackle that Higuain, whatever potential PK that wasn't. But Loffelsen's obviously ends in a goal, so it's the number one moment that I saw, and I love a pass like that. It's one of those where as it happens, you slowly start to stand up.
Yeah, and it was like a carbon copy of the Jefferson Savarino pass from last week against the Sounders that led to a Cordova goal. But like, I've been trying all year to explain this RSL team and have not been able to. And like the fans are getting all over me about it. It's like there's no explaining it, and nothing better exemplifies that than the fact that Jesper Loffelsen was a full-time college right back. He's a 24-year-old German kid who played at the lower levels, came to the U.S. for 2 years, played at Pitt, was like highly decorated college right back, gets taken 81st in this year's Super Draft. 81st. Comes into MLS and gets plugged in for some reason as a central midfielder and is awesome. This kid is so good. He's honestly one of the best, 7 or 8 two-way midfielders in the league over the past couple of months. None of what I just said makes any sense. That is not a career path that makes any sense. And yet, that explains completely this season from RSL.
Also, please, on that RSL goal, what also explains it is the 20 seconds before the pass where Vancouver are banging it off the post and it's like ping pong in the RSL box and oh, okay.
And
we found a little space.
Also,
we'll go on the counterattack and Cordova will score.
And
he came from
Cordova,
our new owners who also own Augsburg. It's all just.
Also, Cordova, as classic him, overplays, overweights. He is one of the worst finishers in MLS, but he's got 3 goals in the last 4 weeks because people are creating chances for it.
RSL, baby. It's a trip. It's a trip. All right, Caleb,
81st is like a third-round draft pick, by the way, just out of respect. It's
Yeah.
Best thing I saw this week, Kai Kamara. I think he moved to 3rd place all time in MLS goals. A big win. Yeah, round of applause to Kai. There you go. But yeah, huge win for Montreal. Just running over New England. Kyoto was running wild, but I think the way that they connected too was a really nice finish. Kyoto faces up well, which was just a problem for New England all day, and then Kai did a good job just to kind of guide it into that near post. So Kai, incredible story. We were watching him on Instagram not too long ago in Sierra Leone on the beach training, talking about free agency, trying to find his way back to, really, we thought for a while just to play in the African Cup of Nations, and then now is after that carried it on into MLS. Montreal, special season, a lot going on there. So, but definitely a good day to give Kai his flowers. 3rd all time. When I look at that list with Wando, Landon, Kai, it's pretty incredible to see, and he's had a tremendous career. It's still going. Can't stop the guy.
Yeah, man.
So love it.
It's a little I think of the Wolf of Wall Street moment where he's I'm not going. I'm not going. He just refused. He refused to let it in, when no team seemed to want to sign him. And he has just sort of revived himself. The dude doesn't get hurt. He also doesn't seem to age at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't – there's no – you don't look at Kai now and, like, look at him a couple years ago and be like, oh, there's a noticeable decline in like, athleticism. No, it still all seems to be there. It's just about somebody giving him a chance. And I think he's got that Alan Gordon sort of like spot starter but more super sub role in him for probably a couple more years if he wants it, to be honest with you. I went and did some research here. And by the way, he's on 135 and LD's on 145 and Wando's 171. I believe he will pass Landon. I think 10 goals is well within his reach. It really is more dependent on people continuing to give him the opportunity. And if he plays like this, somebody is going to give him that opportunity because he also will move. He'll go. It's not like a guy who's like, well, I'm only going to stay in Kansas City. Like, no, he will go get it. His first goal was April 1st, 2006. That was 16 years, 4 months, and 21 days ago. I just wanted to read that off because that's nutty.
So his first goal could, if he went into the academy setup, could have debuted in MLS already.
Correct.
That's how old his first goal
Obed
was.
Vargas is probably younger than Kai's first goal.
That's wild.
That is very wild. It was also scored on April Fool's, which is also just an awesome Kai piece of trivia as well. Doyle, what's your best moment of week 27?
Hernan Losada's Instagram.
Instagram reporter.
Oh God, I didn't see it. I don't follow him on Instagram, but like I saw the tweet kicking around. He put out a clip on his Instagram stories of the DC United game from this weekend.
That's a very apt siren right there.
Which is like, I'm assuming everybody listening to this knows that DC United got absolutely smashed 6-0 this weekend. They were helpless. Wayne Rooney took a flamethrower to his team and basically the whole organization afterwards. So Losada putting out a clip. Boy, that is a type of petty I can get behind. Absolutely.
Would have loved to see the open eye emojis over that one. Would have really loved to see it from Hernan, who's been I do follow on Instagram because Instagram reporter, et cetera, has been making the rounds around the world to different training facilities and clubs as he looks for his next job. But yeah, it was tough. We got a bunch of stats on that, and we'll read you the quotes from Wayne Rooney. Best thing I saw in week 26. I'm sorry, Andres. He's been correcting me in the chat this entire time, but it all bleeds together. San Jose's entire week, from Lucci to winning at home against LAFC, it looked like a party that they needed as a club and as a fan base. Ben Reich hit us up. He emailed this in, and he basically he just said it for me, what I was planning on saying. I have to start with this, guys. Tommy Thompson played out of his mind last night for the Quakes. It was a joy to watch. Always a joy to see Tommy express himself. He says, last night was the epitome of what makes MLS great. I was able to take my brother and sister-in-law to their first ever game, and they will be coming back. My best friend, who just 3 months ago came to his first game in San Jose, is now naming players in the run of play and giving me, an LAFC fan, lip service after that dud of a performance. Meanwhile, I was standing clapping for the Quakes in an LAFC jersey, mind you, because MLS After Dark is awesome and this league is just my favorite. Lastly, shout out to San Jose on a 10 of 10 week. This is what I'm talking about. Getting Lucci, banging Cade Galazos, beating LAFC at home. PayPal Park was bumping last night. It was a really great day from the tailgate all the way through the end of the game. As always, appreciate you guys and cheers to what is shaping out to be a really great stretch run. Did not expect that from the Quakes. There was some rotation for LAFC, and I guess we can just kind of dive into game analysis here. LAFC did clinch a playoff spot, so they're the first team with an X next to their name. Not a huge surprise. They still lead the Supporters' Shield standings, and we all sort of expect them to stay there. Cade Cowell with the banger. Yeah, pretty good, but a bunch of news around this one as well. Mamadou Fall reportedly is going to go to Villarreal on loan through next summer. Jeff Carlisle started that reporting, and Tommy Scoops, our own Tom Bogert, sort of reconfirmed it. Now it seems like Brian Rodriguez is going to move, and then Christian Teo is going to come in for him as a DP, then be TAM next year. What's the big takeaway from this game? Anybody feel something strongly for the Quakes win?
No. I thought the Quakes just played with more energy. They've been kind of I think it was clear maybe 6-8 weeks ago that Alex Cavello wasn't going to be the long-term head coach. And I think that kind of weighed them down. And then this week with the Lucci announcement, I think it allowed the Quakes to play with more energy and more commitment. And I think we saw that on both sides of the ball. I also think that we saw them and I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into a one-game sample size, but they did a really good job of getting into those primary assist zones, the Man City zones, along the side of the box for pullbacks or crosses to the back post, which is how Man City scores 100 goals a year. Lucci's teams in Dallas didn't do that very well. They were down in the bottom 30% of the league just in terms of getting to those spots and creating chances from those spots. Everything else, I thought their structure was good. Their play in terms of how they wanted to get from their defensive third to the attacking third was really good. They didn't have those final third kill patterns. Lucci spent a year with Greg Berhalter. Berhalter's crew teams were just exquisite at those final third kill patterns, getting to those spots and then hitting killer passes to create one-touch finishes in the box. 9 of 10 San Jose shots on the night were from inside the box. So I'm reading a lot into one performance where he technically wasn't even pulling the strings, but he said in his interview, like, yeah, I'm having input already. So I hope that what we see from San Jose going forward is I hope is reminiscent of how those crew teams played under Berhalter. I think that would be a sort of a logical next step to expect from Lucci as a head coach. As for LAFC, I mean, they're leveraging every part of the roster. They're leveraging every mechanism they have, and they're leveraging the fact that they are, one of the great markets in the world that people want to live in, including soccer players. So, it's going to be tough for other teams to keep up. But I will remind you, and we said this on last week's show as well, they were ahead of the single-season points record pace before they signed Bale or Chiellini. They're obviously ahead of it before they bring Christian Teo in. They got there because John Thorrington went out last winter and signed Ilya Sanchez, Kellen Acosta, Maxime Crepeau, Ryan Hollingshead, Tajuri Strati, they took a flyer on him. Escobar, another one. But they made moves to solidify this team. Those moves happened within the context of MLS. And they're not done with them. They got Sebas Mendes for $350,000. Like a talent like that, yeah, that's worth spending it. So they are beating teams to the punch for talent inside the league. And if you have that, and you have the ability to go out and get guys who project to be game-breaking DPs, or in Teo's case, I think less than that, but still probably a very good player in this league. You're going to be up around 70 points every year, and you're going to give everybody else a target to aim at, and that's a good thing. That's competition. This weekend is just a blip. I don't read anything at all into it. I think in the long term, it's clear that LAFC are going to be setting a new standard for what it takes to compete in MLS, and that's good.
Just a couple questions for you, Dave.
I just wanted to jump off the back of what Doyle said in talking about San Jose, the way they played in sort of Greg Berhalter style. Austin is, by a country mile, the leaders in MLS now of final third passes, of passes from those dangerous areas. That's Josh Wolf coming from the school of Greg Berhalter. And when I look at what Lucci got out of FC Dallas and sort of the conversation we've been having for a week, which is who stays in San Jose? What are they building off of? Just look at the performances from Diego Fagundes and Maxi Urruti and Ethan Finley and Hector Jimenez. A lot of players that most people wouldn't say would be consequential to a Supporters' Shield contender, whatever you want to call Austin. I think that's part of the calculus we all have to find, which is if that is going to be a major part of the way Lucci plays, which you assume it will after working under Berhalter for so long, it changes the type of talent you're probably looking for in those areas.
Christian Espinoza in that sort of system is going.
He's already pretty high up in chance creation as well.
I know he is. He's been there for a long time, but he's gonna be feeding Jeremy Ebobisse, who's got to be really, really excited about that Lucci hire. Here's the questions for you, Dave, and this is right in your wheelhouse here. 5 goals, 3 assists this season for Benji Kakanovic. How old is he, though?
22.
Well done. You can't be tricked on this one.
Nice.
How about this? Christian Brown from London, England.
I did not cheat, Anders. I knew he was 21 when he came to San Jose last year, and it's been a year.
Christian Brown in London, England, Kalen. First thing Lucci should do is make Jeremy Ebobisse captain. He has led by example on the pitch this season, and spoken fantastically off the pitch for a few years. Plus, that might make him a lifer for the Quakes. What do you think about that?
I think I've said before, I don't support strikers becoming captains. Even the best guys on the planet, like, even you're supposed to be thinking about yourself, not the team. Like, that's what you're supposed to be selfish. Jeremy's selfish. He wants goals. He's the best guy in the world, right? But I don't believe, as a former striker, and I mean this as a sign of respect to all of my community. I want selfish strikers, not guys that are worried about like the locker room or whatever. It's like just yelling at people, asking for the ball. That's the best strikers I've been around. So
okay, I support this take. Great take. All right, let's start with it's not a news segment. We're going to prioritize it here. The biggest playoff implication matches of Week 26, and I think we got to start with Inter Miami, Toronto FC. 2-1 win for Inter Miami. They are above the line. Toronto FC are not above the line. And, of course, the margins are crazy, crazy tight. From 5 in the East, Orlando City, who got a big win late this weekend against Charlotte. We'll talk about that in a second. All the way down to Atlanta in 13th. It is a 6-point gap. Everything to play for the rest of the way. This was a huge win for Miami at home. It was a tough week for Toronto.
Sorry, we kind of gloss over it, which I'm glad we did, because we shouldn't do 40 minutes on them a week they lose. But the LAFC roster build that's going on right now is such a mind-breaking thing. I'm reading Tom's tweets right now. Remember 2 months ago, it was like, well, they're going to sign a young 9. Brian Rodriguez isn't going anywhere. And now, after the window closes, they're going to sign a new DP who will become a TAM player when Bale becomes a DP while they sell Brian Rodriguez. This is the weirdest season of all time. Sorry, go back to the team you were talking about.
I was asking you about Toronto and Miami, but I appreciate the Charlie Davies moment there.
It's so bizarre. Toronto-Miami was a great game, and I was pumped about this game because I thought it was going to be 5-4. I didn't imagine there'd be a lot of games that Toronto plays the rest of the way that isn't 2 or 3 goals for them, and Inter Miami seemed like a susceptible opponent in that way. Damian Lowe was incredible in this game. Ryan Saylor's been awesome for them after Amy Mbaki was their starter to open up the year, so they've had 2 draft picks basically hold it down at center back for them. I thought there was 1 or 2 moments where Yedlin fell asleep with Insigne early on. Otherwise, again, lights out performance from him. And the central midfield did enough, tracked enough of the runners out of central midfield, whether it's Oso, whether it's Jaden Nelson, whether it was DeAndre Kerr, to keep things clean for Inter Miami. They're going to create chances. Pozuelo, Higuain, Taylor, there's enough creativity alone to create chances without throwing numbers forward. If they can play defensively like they have over the last month or so, then they have the opportunity to make the playoffs. And this was a huge win for them. The only goal was one of the most absurd goals of the year. Insigne sliding through a deflected shot from 20 yards out to hit a clean volley into the corner is not something you'd anticipate. And I thought, besides that, for most of the game, Inter Miami kept things clean.
Yeah, I think Toronto, obviously, let's just say that the load on the legs of the Italians and the schedule hadn't done them any favors, which is why winning at home against the Revs was so important and why that was such a disappointing draw for them. The goalkeeping, Alex Bono let one go straight through his hands from Jean Mota. That was just a brutal, brutal moment in their quest to make the playoffs. But it felt like they were tired. And you know, Phil Neville said that afterwards. He was like, yeah, we figured they'd come down here, come into our heat, their 3rd game in 8 days or whatever it is, and we'd have an advantage. And they took advantage of that advantage. And it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do in the locker room, Kalen. We were dumping on him for a hot second there. It looked like they were just sort of lost at sea. And he benched Higuain, got buy-in from Higuain back, got the rest of the roster performing, guys that we probably never would have expected to have this sort of role in a season in which, and time in which they have limitations on what they can do as far as transfers because of everything that's transpired, you know, water under the bridge, but that keeps coming back up. Like, we got to give Phil Neville a little credit here.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking beforehand, and I was saying how even though there's not much time left in the season, it doesn't feel like every team has really been able to kind of like click into desperation mode at this point to really, when I'm watching the games, I saw a couple teams, I guess Orlando late pushing with Tesho. This Miami team has been on a run now for some weeks where I've seen that, they've come from behind, which I always say is like a good measure of the character of a team. And when you think of just how you're going to move from near the bottom to the top, and we'll talk about DC at some point and how Rooney's got to figure out, how do I drop some people? Because frankly, that's a part of it. How do I add pieces in without losing the people that I've dropped? Because if you just completely throw people to the wayside, which at some point would be compelling, right? And I think at certain points in time, I was one that stood up and was like, Gonzalo Higuain, he needs to be off the pitch. This is not, he doesn't look up for it. He looks disinterested. His body language, the way he's dealing with his teammates, you can't ask him to come in and lead this team or to set a culture or to set a standard. But to be fair to Phil Neville, he didn't ask him to do that. And when he needed to drop him, he did. But he didn't lose him. And he brought him back in. And I think that's been one of the more impressive things that I've seen throughout the season is making some tougher decisions, finding the right pieces, playing Duke. Now, obviously, that's a little easier guy not to lose when you drop him, but when he's come on off the bench even, he's made a difference. Picking Calendar, keeping the group alive, and I'll just be honest, this Inter Miami team seemed, the word I would use to describe them for a long period of time was fragile. They just seemed right on the edge of, if it was going to go bad, it was going to go real bad. It was going to go 4-0, 5-0, right? And what we're seeing now is it goes 1-1, and then they come back and find a way to get in front of it. Or they go down 2-1, and they come back and find a way to get level or even ahead. And so I think that's where, if you're going to measure what Phil Neville's done, those are more the places that I would look to say he's made some tough decisions, but he's managed to keep the group. And make some tough decisions along the way. But they seem really locked in as far as that kind of playoff when I'm watching them play. It looks more like they're gearing up for a playoff run, or they look like to make the playoffs at least, towards this back, little 7-8 games. I can't remember exactly how many they have left, but yeah.
And I would add to what you mentioned, the quote last week, I think, Weeby, you sent into the group chat, going into the Toronto FC game, where Phil Neville was last year we joked that Gonzalo had to find passes to Gonzalo. This year he knows he has trust that Pozuelo and Bryce Duke are going to find him, right? That's examples of Phil Neville making sure that Bryce Duke knows that they value him at that level, to keep him involved, to keep him engaged, and he's continued to perform. I think they're second in the league in picking up points from losing positions after the 75th minute or whatever that cutoff minute is. So to Kalen's point, they have grinded out every single game, and they pretty much don't quit for a club that gave up 5 goals the second week of the season and have been an embarrassment for 2 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was my thing. Is they could have quit early. It would have been easy to lose that locker room given the early results, given Higuain sort of not being locked in. Is a real credit to Phil Neville for getting that done. Toronto are in a spot, man. I don't know how they're going to pull out of this. They definitely have to get more from the Italians, but that comes down, I think, to just to fitness levels and the how taxed they were coming into this game. But the time is running out for them. They've only got 7 games left.
This weekend at Charlotte is do or die. They have to go to Charlotte and they have to pick up 3 points. I think 5-1-1. Talking to data people, they say about 46 points will probably be the line for 7th place in the Eastern Conference. So Toronto would probably need to go 5-1-1 down the stretch. They're on 30 points, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 5-1-1 down the stretch would get them in. So their margin for error after this week they just had is just about nil.
Since you mentioned Charlotte, let's just talk Charlotte in this segment as well. Charlotte at home, where they've been very, very good. It was 1-1 going to the 89th minute. A little positive. Jozwiak finally, poke him with a stick. He finally did something. Had an assist in this one. That was his first time on the box score after signing a DP contract. But Tesho Akindele got to value that MLS experience, baby. They let him go on a full field counterattack goal. You had Anton Walks apologizing afterwards for whiffing on the clearance. You had Tesho being saved and then getting the rebound and then banking it. This was a huge win for Orlando as well, who've been honestly disappointing this season in my opinion, but there they are in 5th place on 36 points. This, Doyle, was a massive moment in a 6-pointer that gave all 3 to Orlando.
Yeah, and I actually think that Charlotte played pretty well for good chunks of this game. They're really well structured. I think Christian Lattanzio has done very good work getting buy-in from most of the players on the team. But they're bumping up against the limits of what's possible with this roster. There are some good players, some useful players on this roster. I don't think there's a single guy who you would point at and say, yeah, he's definitely a starter for most teams in MLS. And if that's the case, you're going to miss the playoffs. And Charlotte deserves a ton of credit for fighting as hard and as long as they have, and they ended up where I expected them to. Well, their season's not over yet, but I said they'd end up probably between Austin's first year and Minnesota's, and they look like they'll end up between 31 and 36 points, which is those two benchmarks. But they didn't do it the way I thought they would do it. We all thought it was going to be Miguel Angel Ramirez and this cadre of good South American players, attackers anyway, and playing that type of soccer. And obviously that fell apart right away. Literally zero of the South American attackers they signed in the year before their inaugural season have panned out. Literally none of them.
Most of them aren't even on the roster anymore.
Right. And the one, Jordi Alcivar is still there. He's still taking up a DP slot. He doesn't even play. Right? They have 3 DPs. One doesn't play. One is Camille Joswiak, who has 0 goals and 1 assist in 700 minutes. And the third is Swiderski, who's a good player, but certainly not one of the elite center forwards in the league. So they didn't hit their DPs. They didn't get the original roster build right. And yet they're still up until, they're still, even with this absolutely devastating loss, they're still credibly in the playoff hunt, right? Crazier things have happened. I don't think it's going to happen here, but Lattanzio and the spirit that he has sort of built into that locker room, they deserve a lot of credit, but they have so much work going into this offseason. It's not like Austin was last year, where you could look at that roster and say, they have 8 guys. They have 8 guys who I think can be part of a good team. I didn't think they would be as good as they are this year, but you could see it, that they had something and they had a style of play. With Charlotte, it's not like they have 8 guys. It's like they need 8 guys. They need to do a lot of surgery. And a game like this just kind of reinforces it, because they played well. They just didn't have the sharpness or the attacking third quality they needed to turn those good moments into goals.
538 has Charlotte at 9% to make the playoffs. Just to throw it out there, 5% for Toronto FC. The 3 teams under 1% are Sporting KC, Houston, and DC United. San Jose still at 3%, so you're saying it could happen. How about Nashville? Kalen, Hany Mukhtar. And we've been saying for a long time, can they get it done at home? They got to score goals at home. They got to win games at home. They weren't doing any of those things. Saying, hey, too reliant on Hany Mukhtar, and what they really needed was Jacob Schaffelberg all along.
He was good. He had a really...
I will always bring it back to Schaffelberg, but Hany was absurd. Yeah. That first goal is the Landon Donovan near post in the World Cup goal on steroids. And then he goes and he bangs the free kick, top corner. He's literally unstoppable on a team where if you're facing them, your scouting report is all you got to worry about is stopping him.
I would say D-Row-esque. D-Row is probably the one.
Yeah, that was
D-Row-esque. Because he's got that insane don't shoot. Okay, amazing goal. But yeah, Hany, he had one. He should have had a hat trick actually, because he hit one off the crossbar as well too. But I just think I got to watch him at All-Star for up close, and it wasn't exactly the the toughest match in the sense, but I just love that he's my favorite player. I've mentioned D-Row. D-Row is my favorite player ever in MLS, and I think Hany's easily my favorite player right now in MLS. And it's just because he just finds space. He can move. The way he moves, kind of his balance, his technical ability is so clean, and then he can just hurt you in so many different ways. The partnership with CJ, where He leaves it. They just have such a good understanding of the way to play and move around each other. And Nashville can hurt you with just the two of them. They leave those two guys high, and they just say, whatever you have left, you're going to have to deal with these two very different types of players and this understanding. They also brought more at that Schaffelberg. They had more depth. They have that wing play back going again that I think is Shaq Moore coming up. Schaffelberg was really good. Lovitz gets forward, even though he's playing a little bit more as like a center back at this point. But I just like this. I've always liked this Nashville team. But it felt like in a way they needed, and I know Dallas didn't have Jesus Ferreira in this, but it felt like they needed a win almost for themselves to reconvince themselves that they can be this team heading towards the playoffs.
I mean, Dax thought so, right? Dax MF'd the whole locker room, including himself, after last week's game. So, like, when your captain does that and then you respond like this and your MVP, like, Hany's not going to win Player of the Week because Julian Carranza scored a hat trick, and anybody who scores a hat trick automatically wins Player of the Week. That's the way the voters do it.
We should honestly at this point like devalue hat tricks against DC United. They
Absolutely.
don't count for as much as other hat tricks.
You know
Absolutely.
what? I actually think Carranza should lose his goals in the Golden Boot race.
I did the math later. We'll go through the math. I mean, his great season is fueled by
My
DC.
point-
He should be paying them bonus money.
My point was that we were talking before the show started about how the stretch run was supposed to start 3 weeks ago, but so many teams aren't really playing like it, either with the sharpness or the urgency, and that included Nashville. And then you get a game like this one last night from Hany Mukhtar, where he's an MVP candidate. He is the best player on his team. He is arguably the best player in the league, and he came out like his hair was on fire. And it wasn't just the best player I saw this weekend. Like, that might have been the best individual game I've seen anybody in this league play all year when you consider the stakes, which are high, because if Nashville hadn't won, they would have been below the line, and like the Boo Birds have been out in Nashville, deservedly so, given the stakes and the quality of the opposition. Dallas had a stinker. Like, they played really badly. But part of that was just, Nashville and mostly Hany blowing him up, just absolutely blowing him up. It was a masterclass of a performance from him, and Nashville needed it so badly. And it was nice to see this team that has had, zero entertainment value, despite all their talent, respond to Dax's post-game tirade from last week. It's good to know that type of thing can still work.
All right, let's run through a bunch of other results. How about we, let's see. Dave, I'm going to give you LA Galaxy, Seattle Sounders, 3-3 Friday night.
Man,
Roldan out. That's bad news.
I forgot that game even happened. It sounds like Obed Vargas out for the year as well.
Yeah.
Schmetzer's comments.
But Schmetz is all on the Danny Leyva train, by the way.
Yeah, as he should
He's all
be.
about it.
So
is Ladero.
Yeah, as they need to be, by the way, because they need someone to cover ground for them and sort of make Rusnak and Ladero's life easier. I thought Rusnak was really good in this game. Obviously creates the moments that create the goal, although couldn't stop hitting the post as well. And I think it was a microcosm of Seattle's season. The overwhelming talent, the opportunities are there. They'll feel like they should have gotten 3 points in the end, but you go down early, you come back, and then you give up the late goal on the penalty kick, which is a little frustrating and sort of just keeps them sitting right below the playoff line. But in general, I think this is where they stand, and it's fine. They have enough talent. They're going to get over the line in the end, although Friday night is a crucial game for them.
Portland Timbers. We have a tweet here from Senior Fern who says, will this year end the Cascadia run of MLS Cup finals? Man, that's something you don't put out in the ether, man. You just keep that to yourself. You bury that deep inside you, somewhere where nobody's going to find it because you're tempting fate on that one. Kevin Cabral might be broken. We don't got to go further into that one, but Doyle, you tweeted the clip out of him. He just doesn't. It's like he didn't want to go for it.
Yeah, I think he stopped his run because he was afraid of getting a chance that he was going to miss. Because it was another one-touch finish in the box. It was a picture-perfect run until he pulled up. And I think that He has missed so many sitters. Honestly, he played this game like he was just emotionally broken by the weight of expectations of contributing goals to this Galaxy attack. And with the way that they line up in that 4-2-3-1, he's got to contribute goals. Like it's his job out there, and I don't think he can do it. I just don't think he can do it.
I forgot to mention that Ricky Pooch made his debut.
I was just going to ask
in this
you,
game. The buzzer tells you right there. You guys can talk about it. Enjoy.
That's okay. That was a confirmation, I believe. That buzzer, a confirmation that Ricky Pooch, that we pronounced his name correctly. I didn't see a ton from him in this one that goes to sort of what we've said that the Galaxy need out of that attacking midfield position. But it's one game and it's very early and it's a substitute appearance against some very good Seattle Sounders midfielders. So we'll just keep it going. We'll
was
see.
it good? Did I miss it? Was it fun?
No, I just said I didn't think we saw in this game exactly what.
I am so excited. That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, this is better.
Yeah, when the I hope when the Galaxy teammates realize what he's capable of and how he plays, like there were so many moments that you can put him under pressure. Every time he was half a step next to a midfielder, he wants the ball. And then the Galaxy players, I don't think, anticipate that it's going to come back immediately. But to play in and out of his feet, I think is going to be fun to watch for me. Whether there's pure chance creation out of it, I'm not sure. But just watching a guy at that level and watching him just surrounded by defenders and showing what he can do. And you see it at times.
You saw this in the Galaxy game?
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, a lot of it happened in the middle third and defensive third, which sucks. But I'm hoping it comes as we go along.
That was kind of my issue, is that isn't what.
All right, it's the first time the guys played with his team. I don't know.
I said that.
It's going to happen
looked
day
like
one.
it.
Yeah, I said
It looked
that.
like it, yeah.
David,
I'm
David
all
goes
in.
to the
Also,
package.
He's a tuck.
What came?
You know I'm a tuck
Yeah,
guy, so
Yeah, big Tucker.
yeah. So
Yeah, hard. That's a hard tuck from Mickey. He's making the elastic is doing a lot of work for him.
You'd call it L tuck, but it's Catalan, so it's more like felt thuck. That's how you say it.
I can't with that.
That's the worst thing that we've ever had.
That is on a
Extra
long
Time.
list of terrible stuff that's happened on this show.
Oh
That's
my
near the top.
goodness.
Bobby Warshaw's English impressions that's a two-horse race there. Minnesota United hosting Austin FC, 2-1 win for the Loons. Doyle, here are some questions for us. One, is Minnesota United good, great, or elite?
I think they're very good and verging towards great.
Okay. Ryan asks, is Robin Ludd the most valuable unsung player in MLS? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay, yes. What did you think of the result overall? And then maybe you can give me a little bit on Emiliano Rigoni, who is at the training facility now for Austin and had a literal large group of supporters, I think with smoke, welcoming him in song in full voice, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, so just overall, obviously the result that they wanted, getting a home win over a very good Austin team. I didn't think Minnesota was dominant in the way that they've been dominant at times over the past 10 games. I didn't think that Reynoso was at his sharpest, but he was still obviously really, really good. And the thing that strikes me about all that is they weren't dominant. Reynoso wasn't great, and everything is built around Reynoso. But they still won 2-1 over a very good Austin side. And one of the things I was sort of harping on earlier in the year was that, fans sometimes misinterpret formation as tactics. And a lot of Minnesota fans were looking at this team saying they play a 4-2-3-1 every week. It's just the same thing every week. And I was like, it's the same formation. But, Adrian Heath has started throwing in, mixing in some high pressing, mixing in, some man marking into the, baseline zone of defense, changing stuff up a little bit. And we've seen that a ton especially since the return to play after the international break. And I think they've been the best team in the league, or maybe second best behind LAFC in terms of points per game since the June international break. And look, that's what this game came down to. Frangipane saw Julio Cascante dawdling on the ball in the box, his Mendy moment, so to speak, and picked his pocket and scored a goal. Now, granted, that was more Fragapane recognizing the moment and making a great individual play. But you look at the structure, Like that is a textbook pressing structure from Minnesota in that moment against an Austin team that they know is going to play out. Austin is going to play out from the back. They're not going to boot it long. Like that's a well-prepared team. That's a team that has different ways to hurt you. They've been doing it now for 2 months. They have guys who, in Reynoso, I think he's an MVP caliber player. They have a half dozen other guys who are among the better players in the league at their position. I think it was a big moment. It continued to solidify a lot of the things that I feel like I've been seeing from Minnesota all year. As for Rigoni, I like this Austin team a lot. I like their wingers a lot. Ethan Finlay has been really, really good. Diego Fagundes has been really, really good. Neither of those guys beat anybody off the dribble. Even Driussi doesn't really beat players off the dribble. If Rigoni can come in there and add that element to this attack, then I think they go up another level, and it's already one of the best attacks in the league. I need to see it happen on an MLS field before I can say, for sure it's going to work. But if he brings that to what they already have, good luck. Good luck, preventing this team from dropping 3 on you.
And the thing that also excites me with Rigoni is what Doyle said. If they add that, does it allow you to be a little more conservative with your fullback? Does it make them stronger defensively because they don't have to overwhelmingly commit numbers and have the 87 options in the final third? It wouldn't be all the time, but it could be sometimes. And there is still big mistakes in Austin FC defensively. Let me ask you this. Yeah, that is their Achilles heel in a playoff game. The more numbers you have deeper, the less crucial or fatal those mistakes could be. So it'll be interesting to see just like how long it takes with Rigoni. Are you really like starting a guy for the first few times around decision day and into the playoffs isn't really something we have a ton of experience with.
He's a big wild card, for sure. There's a couple of those in the Western Conference. I'd count Bale as one of those wild cards as well. Like, they're trying to build him up and have the timing be right. Quickly, Logan asked, is Austin's goal conceding problem due to individual mistakes in the box, or is it more due to their single pivot defensive midfield and asymmetrical midfield with Pereira and Driussi having less stability in the middle of the park? What's the quick answer to that? Is it individual mistakes or systemic?
It's been more individual mistakes lately, but just systemically, they're not as compact as the other top teams in the league. LAFC, like we think of LAFC as a wide open attacking team. When they want to go compact, they can just shut it down. And I haven't seen that from Austin yet.
Okay, let's keep it moving here. Caitlin, you mentioned Montreal and the Revs. Look, it's a 4-0 win for Montreal. It's Romel Kyoto. I think he deserves to be in the MVP conversation at this point. 14 goals, 4 assists. We heard for years, and you wrote about this, Doyle, in your column, another banger from you. But we heard for years that, and we knew watching him, his talent level was super high. He was just so inconsistent. And in front of goal, he struggled at times to be efficient. Well, it's kind of turning around for him on both sides. But the big news here is Djordje Mihailovic looks like he's going to AZ Alkmaar in the Netherlands for about $6 million. That's what the reports are, then loaned back for this season. Do you like this move for Djordje, Kaylin?
Yeah, I do. I think at a certain point in time, there were, especially for, I would say, skillful young Americans, that was the league to go to. We saw Michael Bradley, I think, he started there, right?
Yeah, Aaron Veen, yep.
Yeah, Will Johnson was there. There was Josie went there. There was a number of guys that had gone, and I know Will's from Canada, but just from going domestically, I think Bees went there. There's been a number of guys over time that have gone to that league and done well. And I think even when we look at Luca De La Torre and some guys that he'd be competing with for the World Cup spot, the style of play, the technical ability, the tactical sort of sense of the game. There's a reason why that league has continued to push players on to even bigger levels. And we've seen some guys, Cole Bassett. I know he was on the show last week. Shout out Cole. So I just think I always, that immediately, when I see that, or even I feel like Germany now has kind of been that next place for young Americans. I know Georgie's a little bit older. But I think that's always a good spot for him. And I think the idea of even continuing, not having to necessarily throw it all and finish this season out with this club, I think gives him a better chance at the World Cup as opposed to having to try to change having to try to change and settle in right away. I think he's got a good thing going, and I think Greg wants to give him a chance if he's back healthy and pushing. So I don't know. I like the move overall. I think Montreal has a real crack at this thing. I think with some of the changes that have happened in the Eastern Conference, with Tati leaving, Philly is obviously right up there. But they're Montreal's second in the table right now with the real.
Yep.
That you add him, and we thought for a while it was only when Djordje was sorry, I did Sky today. When Djordje, we thought when Djordje was in, it was like he was going for MVP because we thought, what would this look like without him? And they've continued to be able to get results even in his absence. So when you add him back into the mix and you have the mobility of a Kyoto who can stretch the field, and you have Djordje making those late arriving runs, I think would be, you're going to see him come back in and find success.
I like that it's $6 million. I like that it's AZ. AZ's going to be a team, unlike when we talked to Cole, Fortuna, that are going to have the ball, that are going to dominate some teams in their division. And I think that's a good situation for him where the club's expended a lot of resources on him. Obviously going to pay him a lot because foreign players into the Netherlands got to make a certain amount. Like, they're going to have to be looking at him as someone to develop and sell on, which they have a good history of as well. He should get opportunities to really thrive. I think
if it is $6 million, and that's like that has not been confirmed, but if it is $6 million, he'll be their most expensive signing in 15 years. So they would not be buying him to develop him. They would be buying him to slot him right into the lineup. And AZ is, they're probably, I think, the fourth or fifth biggest club
they
in the Netherlands.
Just missed out on Europe.
Exactly.
Just
so this is their push to get into Europe. And it's also worth noting, Billy Bean, the Moneyball guy, he's one of the investors in AZ who came on over the past year. So Djordje jumps off the page in terms of underlying numbers. And in the Eredivisie, guys who create chances like that, play big minutes, have a lot of success, get sold for big money, their next stop.
Matt in the Cream City hit us up, and he praised Justin Rennick, said he was excited about a young American having the contributions he did against Toronto FC. Also, we talked about the Cream City on the last show. We didn't know where that was. We thought, I don't know,
is it
maybe
Boston?
It was just me. Does anybody know where the Cream City is? Anybody?
I've never heard that.
No, nobody? Kaylin, you got a Cream City reference in you here? Or is that outside your...
We missed that.
Not big Wisconsin people. Just wanted to put it out there because Matt in the Cream City says, Andrew... And apparently it's for all of us, so I'm not the only one being corrected here. The Cream City is an old nickname from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a great place on a great lake, all caps on that. It refers to the distinctive color of the brick used in a lot of the older buildings.
It does not have to do with the massive amount of dairy that's produced in Wisconsin?
No,
I thought it was going to be
it's
beer. I thought it was going to be a beer
Yeah, it's
reference.
about bricks. It's an architecture reference for the, those of us that lack in culture. A.k.a. all of us. Crew 2, Atlanta 2. Luke says, how likely is it that Columbus is going to break the record for draws in a single season? Right now they're sitting at 11, I believe. I mean, New England and Cincy are right behind them, so I doubt that they break it. But this was not a great moment for them.
Did
not
Nashville
a great
break that
performance, but
record last year?
Yeah, Nashville set the record.
I feel like Nashville had like 17 or 16.
18.
Yeah,
they had
it was
18
crazy.
last
You're not getting
year.
to 18. Sorry, Crew. And then how bad do you think the Crew would be if they didn't sign Cucho in the middle of the season? Cucho with 2 goals in this one. Cucho is he is extremely special. And I'm glad to see, Doyle, you getting on board the Joseph Martinez references in regard to Cucho.
Was that yours?
I started to start that from the very start, and I got laughed out of the room, man.
Because he has remember how Joseph was inevitable? Like how every single time he took the field in 2017, 2018, 2019, you're like, oh, this guy's getting at least one. Like Cucho feels like that. As for where Columbus would be if they hadn't signed him, not in the playoff race. I think they would be down around 25, 26 points. He's been huge for them. This weekend, though, they got Kevin Molino back for half an hour. And he looked like a guy who has missed most of the past 2 years with various injuries. Like he was not moving particularly well, but he was able to get on the ball a little bit, and he still does that Kevin Molino thing where he comes inside from the wing, and suddenly he's a playmaker, and he's releasing guys, in behind. He's so good at that. And if they can get him a half hour fit Doesn't need to be a 90-minute player, but a half-hour fit. So you get every game down the stretch into the playoffs. You get Cucho, Zelarayan, and Molino out there, and either Luis Diaz or Dabgod on the opposite wing. This team's going to score some goals, man.
Luis Diaz has been a complete underwhelming player in MLS. You can tell now the sole explanation for him of his role on the field is to find Cucho. Any space he is in, his head comes up, and he's just scanning for Cucho. There could be someone wide open on the 6, and he'll cut it back to Cucho.
It's the Julian Gressel thing from Atlanta days, man. And like, why not? It works.
And that first goal had Joseph Martinez like downhill inevitability on it, where like that ball's coming across the box. Okay, who's going to win the race? And you see Cucho running, and it's just, nobody's getting there before he is. He is at high speed, and he is so balanced, so technical. The finish looked very easy for him. Red Bulls won, Cincy won. Good result for Cincy. Matt Miazga with the goal against his former team because of course. Let's talk, though, about, Dave, the extension for Brandon Vasquez that Tom Bogert reported this morning. Long-term contract, new deal through 2025. There was an option for 2023 in place, and now they extend it. Now the club option goes to 2026. 15 goals, obviously, for Vasquez this year. Tom also said that the FC Cincinnati $5 million valuation that was reportedly given to Chivas is not true. I would assume it'd probably be more at this point. But you said on MLS Today, a wonderful show that is live at 11 a.m. Eastern every single day of the week. And on the MLS Today podcast feed, that it felt like Jesus Ferreira. What do you think of this for Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think there's been a pretty decent track record now and sort of blueprint of how to sell successful young players overseas out of Major League Soccer. The first step is to go to the player and say, we need to come from a point of strength so that you can find the right move for everyone involved. Therefore, we can't be up against the end of a contract. So you give that player a lot of money so that they feel better about things. He's also earned that money because he is in the Golden Boot race, is an elite striker, and I believe is about to make roughly $300,000 this season on salary. So you give that player that reward, you extend their contract, and then it allows both parties, both the player's agent and the team, to sort of find the right fit for them going forward. It's what FC Dallas did with Reggie Cannon, although I guess you could say that didn't work out in the end exactly.
Shout out to come at me, Boa Vista fans. Yeah. Come at me.
That didn't work out perfectly the way they want to. I believe it's what Montreal did with Djordje Mihailovic as well. And then Jesus.
I wonder if that's what they're going to do with Ismail Kone as well.
Yeah, potentially. And Jesus Ferreira was given the young DP contract coming into this year, which obviously has paid off. But now, after what we hope will be a successful World Cup run for Jesus Ferreira and maybe for Brandon Vasquez as well, you start to look at, okay, what clubs are coming after them? What leagues will they fit best in? What's the next stepping stone? How do you structure the deal, a la Brendan Aaronson, right? Maybe it's not the biggest club you could find for the first move, but it's the right move with the right pay on afterwards. And I think a lot of this, most of this goes down to Brandon Vasquez, right? His ability to improve himself the way he's played. I think Chris Albright gets a decent level of credit here in that coming from the Philadelphia Union, there's got to be a level of trust from Brandon Vasquez's camp that he will sell him and he will handle it in the right way. And that allows you to sort of have that two-way conversation. So credit to, I think, everyone involved up top at Cincinnati and Brandon Vasquez. And your hope would be you win something with him before he leaves. The World Cup probably changes that calculus if he's a part of that group. If not, you could see a situation where he comes back next year alongside Brenner and Lucho Acosta for at least a little bit.
Winning something, we can get down that road after a while. I think just making the playoffs is still that's what they're hoping for here. They're below the line at this point, but well done. Good business on Brandon Vasquez. And you got to think Nashville's looking across, or at least north, being like, oh boy, we traded him to you for $150K in allocation money. Could we have used Brandon Vasquez? Sure we could have.
Columbus
DC
this weekend, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, hell is real. Oh yeah, it's a really good weekend of matchups. Really good weekend. DC United 0, Philly 6. There's a lot to go through here, and I'll try to make it quick because we don't got to belabor the point. Wayne Rooney already kind of made it clear. Worst defeats in Wayne Rooney's career as a player at 6-1 to Man City, and his worst defeat in MLS as a player is 5-1 to, who you guessed it, the Philadelphia Union. Here's the quote from Rooney after this one. Every player in that second half was a complete stranger to what I've been seeing in training, what I've seen in previous games. You can lose games, but there's a manner in how that happens. They actually looked good for the first, 20, 30 minutes. I thought they should have had a penalty 3 minutes in. Jack Elliott's arm is out there just getting banged by shots. Then it didn't happen. Here's what the captain, Victor Paulson, said, "We need to look at ourselves in the mirror, every single one of us, and take an effing responsibility. That's just how it is. It's not acceptable. I'm ashamed to be captain today." Wayne Rooney said the only player who put in professional performance was Chris Durkin. Yikes. Rooney said he thought the club might have a run of form and make the playoffs when he arrived. Quote, "Let's be realistic," was what he said after this one. Yikes. Rooney says he hasn't seen anything like what happened tonight as a player or a coach in terms of a comprehensive failure to execute, and that he's going to put pressure on the club to spend on players to bring in better players because they absolutely need it. There was a fan meetup on Sunday. Wayne Rooney mentioned that and laughed audibly. I mean, it's bad. On the Philly side, it's all good. You play DC United, and it's a football score. Evan says, simple but important, is Danny Gazdag finally in the MVP conversation now? I think he's in the conversation, but I don't think he's going to be anywhere near the top three. But we can talk about it, and we'll talk about that more. EJ McGrogan says, how much of the last month is Union attackers gelling and being legit cup-winning caliber good, and how much is just dunking on bad teams? That was an interesting question, I thought. I think there's a lot of gelling going on. I also think that they are dunking on the Sean Bradleys of MLS right now.
Weeby is drooling about a bonus game conversation right now. Drooling.
Not bonus games. I didn't even think
He's
about
swimming in his own pool
games
right now.
How did I not know? How did I not know? These are bonus games. So they had 22 goals in their first 18. Good stat pulled by you, Doyle. And then in the 9 games since, the Union have scored 29 goals. Here's how that broke down. 7 against DC, 2 against Miami, 2 against New England, 1 against Orlando, 6 against Houston, 1 against Cincy in a loss, 4 against Chicago. That might be a bonus one. Dallas, 0, they lost, and 6 against DC. I went and did the numbers on Carranza, Ura, and Gazdag. Playoffs versus non-playoff teams. By the way, versus DC and Houston is a 19-0 cumulative scoreline. 14 of their 34 goals have come against DC and Houston in 3 games. Against playoff teams, 10 goals. Non-playoff teams, 24 goals. Just saying.
I don't think you did that math right. You said 14 of their goals have come against DC and Houston. It's 19.
Correct.
No, it's
no,
yeah.
19 of Philly's goals have.
Yeah.
I'm talking specifically about
got
Carranza,
it.
Ura, and
Those
Gazdag.
players. Got
okay.
it. Okay.
Yeah, just the three. Just the 3.
I just love that.
But even
in the reading off the teams that got beat by touchdowns, Kalen still threw up the H for Houston.
You know what?
Meanwhile, Anders is destroying Weeby in the chat. Weeby's research concludes playoff teams are better than non-playoff teams. Good segment, Andrew.
Yeah, well done. Well done to me. So, I did my top attacking trios on the site. You can go check that out. And I ranked Philly 4th.
Yeah, they've been good. I said this on MLS Today last week, though. It's a development for Philly to not have to grind through games against bad teams, right?
Yep.
There's no gap or difference for them against a lot of those teams. They still had to play super hard for 90 minutes. Bedoya had to give them a massive performance, like against everyone. So to be able to blow out teams like this and then rest guys, to be able to blow out teams like this, I think, and put yourself in a space where you can challenge for a Supporters Shield, whether or not they really do in the end, I don't know. A lot of that depends on LAFC. I think all of that is huge, and to do it with different rotations. I thought this was 100% a game McGlynn was going to start. I was surprised he didn't. They still throw up that huge number, and it was impressive and fun to watch, and I think their fans will just take enjoying watching them playing attacking soccer overall and having confidence. Like 80% of this, right? We talked about Cabral. 80% of this is confidence for attacking players.
For the record, McGlynn did start.
Did he?
He went 90 in this game.
There
and
you go.
I wrote about it a bunch for this weekend. Like, not only this game, but how Philadelphia have changed over the past month and a half since McGlynn, especially McGlynn, but also Paxton Aaronson and Quinn Sullivan have gotten back from the U20s. McGlynn's taken on a bigger role. I think he's pushing Leon Flock out of the starting lineup, and he's a much different player. And when he's out there, Philadelphia have different ways to hurt you. They're still going to be direct. We saw that literally McGlynn to Ura in space, which led to the second goal, the penalty. But when he gets on the ball, suddenly they're playing with like a double pivot, and he makes them more press resistant. He allows them to have like their passing sequences are longer just in terms of the number of passes, but they're also wider. So they're able to get those fullbacks better, and both their fullbacks are great attacking players. So they get their fullbacks better. And then the other thing is he allows Gazdag to play as a forward. when McGlynn's out there, yeah, it's still a 4-4-2 diamond, and Gazdag is a number 10, but like I'm doing air quotes when I say number 10. He gets forward because he does not have to orchestrate at all, and there are like very specific patterns of movements in possession that get McGlynn onto the ball in the orchestrator's role. None of that is stuff that the Union were doing the first half of the year. They just didn't have the passing chops in central midfield. But with McGlynn in there, they do have those passing chops. And I think it's why they are blowing bad teams out now. How well will it work against playoff teams? As per Andrew's research, playoff teams are better than bad teams. So we need to get a larger data set, a larger sample size. But I think that what we're really seeing is that the Union they've become both. They have better chemistry because Ura's been healthy now and Karams has grown into the role and all that. But they also have a different way to beat you than they did in the first half of the year. And McGlynn, him and Jose Martinez are out there together. You can't stop them from getting the ball to the parts of the field where they want to have the ball. And that is really, really rough against a team with three guys who are putting the ball at the back of the net.
Can I
speaking of,
I know we don't want to talk too long about them, but the first goal, the defending from Victor Paulsen, was as embarrassing as we've seen in MLS this year. I get he's not a center back. I don't know what this means for Donovan Pines if he can't get a start in this game with Birnbaum suspended and Brendan Hines-Ike out for the year. But Paulsen looked like a defensive midfielder in the box, and so as much as I would take his quotes, there's also a lot of individual issues there as well.
Kalen Carr in the chat, bigger shambles, DC United or Man United? We'll leave you on that one here. Sporting KC 4, Portland Timbers 1, probably two non-playoff teams here, but Sporting Kansas City all of a sudden pretty fun to watch, scoring a ton of goals. William Agata is a breath of fresh air. Love seeing the dude smile. He just seems like positive vibes, positive vibes, positive vibes. He brings something that Kansas City hasn't had since Polito went out, which is a forward who scores goals and looks like they want to score goals and has the confidence to score goals. He's got 5 goals and assists in about 350 minutes. That's just 4 starts. Eric Tommy had a beautiful goal in this one. Kind of stepped into one with his right foot, curled it around the goalkeeper. 2 goals in about 350 minutes for him as well. So that transfer window is looking much better than it did when those guys kind of looked like marginal pieces. They look like more than that for the time being, at least. And Portland seems like they are, they're still alive. They're still in it. They got a big one on Friday against the Sounders, but it looks like they're probably done. Had a bunch of people hit us up from Kansas City, including Adam from KC at 3:45 a.m. into our email inbox, asking about the additions of Agata and Eric Tommy and what they bring. And Zachary Becker said how much better is Sporting Kansas City with an actual striker on the team. Others are wondering what they should do next year, like who on this roster goes and who stays. Keelan, do you have a quick Sporting Kansas City take in you, or are we going to talk for 15 minutes about Jack McGlynn?
Yeah, we could just go deeper on McGlynn. I mean, I wonder a little bit with what happens with Polito if he comes. That would guess be the big question for next year. Is like, do you find a way to move him on if possible? Just feels
I think so. Yeah,
that would be my one take on that. I think when you start to see the offense click without him, and you have question marks around the injury history and just his really inability to be on the pitch for you, it's just you can't really carry that. And
wait, I'm sorry, Polito. They're not keeping Polito now.
I'm not saying.
I would not if I was them. I would find a different way to use that DP spot.
This seems wild to me, but okay.
You haven't been able to count on him for any sort of long-term period because of injuries. If Agata is going to be...
It seems to me
he won't be this productive
like your
always,
ceiling with Polito will be higher than any other player you bring in, and the value of Agata is that now your floor is higher and you don't have to rely on him.
Your floor with Polito is that he just never plays.
But again...
He's just not available.
So one, he's on an injury right now. It's not like there's 5 different things that are wrong. He got hurt for the year and he's out for the year, which happens, right?
And it was injuries before that kept him out of the
for sure, but a lot of that was also COVID, where he was trying to go back and play for Mexico, and he was in and he was out, and you didn't have him consistently. For a club that has never spent at the number they've spent on Polito, unless they get a legitimate return and flip it for a player at a similar level, Alan Polito's better than anyone else they're going to fill that spot with. And Agata now gives you the ability to not have to force Polito. into the lineup if he's not fully fit and get into a playoff situation where Polito can change the game for you.
We will see what happens with Alan Polito. I don't know what his contract situation is and when
I think
up
it's
and
his
what
final year. I think I'm with David. I think I would want Alan Polito in a contract year, but I'm we'll see.
All right, I need to go find that information, but it just doesn't feel like a guy that I would be trying to build around long term if I was Kansas City. A lot of risks there. Rapids won, Houston won. We're not going to analyze this a ton other than to say yikes from Colorado in the 90+5. Here was the quote from Robin Fraser. There were some harsh discussions. It was a harsh discussion. We've shot ourselves in the foot several times this year, and if we keep doing that, then our season is going to be really short. Nico Rivera hit us up and said the Rapids defense is an embarrassment. I don't know the numbers as of late, but I know they're leaking goals, many of which are comically bad. This was a pretty bad moment for them in the 90+5 when they need 3 points at home to get into the playoffs against Houston Dynamo.
How much would you trade if you were NYCFC to the Rapids to get Robin Fraser after this year? I'm going to leave you with that. It's late in the show. Come back next time.
If you've made it to an hour and 20, you got that, little Jim. RSL won. Vancouver won. We have in here that we probably keep short shrifting these teams, and I guess we're going to do it again. Frazier via email. He's an optimistic Caps fan. To the Extra Time pundits, especially the ones who name the Caps for their wooden spoon pick, I know you typically just read the Caps game scores among all the other teams you don't seem to care about, but with the 4 of 6 points they got this week in a home game against Nashville on Saturday, they're in a great place in the playoff race, and I thought you'd want to spend more time on them than a few mumbled superlatives and non-committal shrugs. I've helped you out with some talking points, which is going to be our discussion here. Thank you, Frazier. 1, Ryan Gauld is not getting the respect and attention around the league that he deserves. The guy gets goals, assists, he presses, defends, and causes turnovers. Arguably one of the best players in MLS over the last month or so. 2, Goonies Caps never say die. I don't think I've ever seen a team secure more points in the 80th plus minute than the Whitecaps. While it'd be nice to secure and play out a game with a lead more often, I do appreciate the never give up attitude the Caps have adopted. And 3, new signings make an impact. Schaff has looked solid in the limited minutes so far, but Kubas and Gressel have been the real story. Gressel with the game-tying goal in this one. They probably should have won. I thought Justin Miram had a handball. And Kubas is so solid as a defensive mid, and Gressel's been delivering dimes from the wing. I think that's it. Anything else we have in here? I mean, we have Chicago Fire in New York City.
Did you want us to talk about Vancouver?
I guess we could. We short shrift them, so go ahead. Yep.
No, I think we give them what they deserve, which is they put up some good results. They also gave up 5 to the LA Galaxy last week. That's been their reality this season. A part of that is, I think, the pieces they have defensively. If Jermaine Brown's out for a sizable amount of time, I think it's been proven over the course of this year that Jake Nerwinski's not a starting center back, and they are not good enough around them to be able to continue to win, especially in goal. So Kubas has been elite. I went through the list today. If anyone stands out, I think he might be top 3 in newcomer of the year in the voting. Cucho probably already won it. You guys can think about it while I'm talking. But attacking, they're fun. Sartini's using Gressel a lot of different ways, higher up the field, more centrally, swapping wings. I like that because Gressel's just such a high-level player, and I think he's trying to minimize the defensive work he has to do while still putting him in situations he can be dangerous. And they've done all that while rotating the forwards. But I will say, to whatever this fan's name is, 1, listen to MLS Today because we talked about Vancouver a lot. 2, as long as they play Russell Tybert, we will talk about them the fair amount of time that they get.
That's Frazier, if you'd like to address.
Shout out, Frazier.
Yeah. Let's see. Our 22 player of the weekend presented
is it
by Body
Simon
Armor.
Frazier? Sorry, that's a Canada
I don't
joke.
know. I think it said Frazier Cave was the email, which maybe
It's
I'm
a
giving
Canada
away too
joke.
much.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, sorry. Kwadwo Opoku is going to be mine. We talked about that LAFC roster, and we did not mention him once. He was the guy that got the single goal in San Jose, but he got 7 this year. He is 22 eligible. He's been a great signing for them, great piece of scouting and development for LAFC. We could also throw Cesar Araujo in there. Robert Manzo said, is he a top 5 center defensive midfielder in the league while being a U22 signing? Top 5 for you, Doyle, or no?
No, he's the best under 22 D mid in the league this year, I think. But he's definitely not a top 5 D mid in MLS this year. So we're just not going to talk about the Fire ending their season.
I just had that. I was going to say the Fire end their season. They also kind of got hosed because that second goal was a foul on Rafa Shihus. I don't understand how he got his foot stepped on and lost the ball. I don't get it. Go watch Instant Replay presented by Cheez-Its. I don't know. We don't got to bury the Fire, but I do want to ask.
I don't think they're done. I mean, they
feel
they can. They just had like they came off that 10-game stretch where they were playing really well, and then they went straight into NYCFC, Philly. They have Montreal next. Then I think they have they're at the Revs, and then they're at the Crew. So they went from like the easiest part of their schedule straight into like the hardest part of their schedule, and they're no wins, 2 losses, -5 goal differential through 2 games. It is not looking super promising for the Fire, but like everybody's got 6-pointers, right? Like if they get hot, if they get a little bit of luck, which they've had none of the past 2 games, maybe they can turn it around again and make a push. As for NYCFC, I know they got a win. This broke a 3-game losing streak. They are just like completely different team. Just a completely different team than they have looked at any point since Jason Kreis was their manager. It's absolutely wild how much has changed for NYCFC over the past 3 months.
Should we, since we're an hour and 25 in, I can see Kalen waning here. Should we talk Matias Pellegrini? On waivers from Inter Miami?
No. We talk that next year in training camp.
If he's back.
If he's back.
Just with the Fire, Doyle mentioned the lack of luck. Tehran's been hurt. Jimenez hurt. Pineda's been moved around. All those things. Tehran had to go out in this game. He's not fully fit, but all of it right now is on Shaqiri's shoulders. Like, he needs to play like he is one of the 3 most expensive players in this league.
Dude.
He did not.
Did you watch the first goal?
It's bad. Yeah, it's bad.
I mean,
and he doesn't even really
you don't
react
even
once it goes in.
Well, you don't have to chase him all. I don't want like Shaqiri to have to run back at tracking runners all the time, but you can at least cut down the angle. Like, you don't actually have to chase the man. You just need to drop a little bit. And I think it's the frustration where he just drops his head. But that's been Shaqiri, I think, throughout most places of his career where he hasn't had to do any of that work backwards. It's just you're playing a man down at times. And that's how it goes. But a hell of a strike from Pereira, who I really like as a player. I think we haven't talked about him a ton, but I think he's like 21. He's got like 6 goals now already on the season. I love his ability. That strike was insane. So when we talk about goal of the week, like, there was a couple good choices this week to make.
Yes,
Still going Hany.
And that's it for us. Yeah. Thank you to everybody who's made it this far. What have you gotten? You've gotten David Goss adding himself to the terrible bits of all-time ETR history list, and much more on this show.
Robin Fraser
started a
trade
coaching rumor, and then got really hyped on saving Polito. Yeah. So.
Yeah, respect. I know. He's like got a hashtag going, like, save Alan, like, don't let him go. Anders says the true fans are still here, and that's absolutely true. But we're out of here. That's it for this Monday after week 26. If you got something you want us to talk about, hit us up. Twitter, email, text line. Do it. Adios. Congratulations, you made it through more than an hour of extra time. That means you love the show, and if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time, and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.